I'm going to show you how to use the Orchestrator REST API. Let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Watrous from VVork. If this is your first time here and you want to learn about automating, programming, and monitoring in VMware environments, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to explore how to use the Orchestrator REST API to look up workflow IDs. Now you might be saying to yourself, workflow IDs? Why do I care about that? Why do I need to look those up? Well, you're going to find out why it's so important to be able to do that in this video, so sit tight. But first, let's head into the lab environment. Ultimately, what everyone wants to be able to do is to look up a workflow ID by name. In other words, I don't want to have to go manually searching through the REST body for this request. Instead, by using this REST request, let's actually start taking a look at it. By using this REST request, we are going to be able to tell our REST request which workflow we're looking for. Specifically, we'll say the name of the workflow that we're looking for, and this REST request is going to go automatically searching through that massive REST bot response to find the ID of the workflow with that name. Now, the trick to making this work is going to be the stuff that I'm doing here on this test tab. But let's take a look real quickly here. The REST request that you see here, the endpoint URL for this REST request, is the same as what we saw for get all workflows. So we're still going to get a list of all the workflows, but subsequently in the test code that I'll show you here shortly, we're going to automatically go through that response body and find the information we're looking for. Now, you'll notice here in the URL, the endpoint URL, it says nothing about the workflow name of the workflow that we're looking for. That's not how this particular REST request is defined. In fact, there is no endpoint URL in the API at all that allows you to look up a workflow by name. Instead, you have to do it yourself, one way or another. So let's see how I did it. So the way I did it was I do the same get all the workflows request that we saw before. So let's go ahead and send that. Notice, check, I got a 200. Notice I'm getting back all 567 workflows again, but my test code is going to go through that response body to find exactly the workflow we're looking for and return its ID. So some of the key parts of this code here, I'll let you read through it on your own. You can read through the comments up here. They should help you. But notice that we are getting a postman variable called workflow_name. So for example, if I wanted, let me go to my environments. Let me go to my VVork environment variables. Down towards the bottom, here we go. We've got a workflow called, a postman variable called workflow_name. If I want to look up a particular workflow by name, I just specify the name of the workflow right here. Then I run the request that I just ran. So one way or another, you need to have it in the current value of the workflow_name postman variable. You need to specify, case sensitive, the exact name of the workflow that you're looking for. If you'll do that, we'll take care of the rest for you. So this code in line 16 gets the name of the workflow that we're looking for. Line 16 prints that information out on the console so that you'll have a record of what we're looking for. And then in line 18 through 31, what we're doing is looping through the entire response body until we find a entry that says the exact workflow name that we're looking for. Once we find that entry that has the matching workflow name, we will look up its workflow ID and put that information into a variable called workflow_ID. So notice here, whereas in the earlier test, we were just looking at the first workflow that was returned out of the 567. We were just looking at the first. Now we're looking at all of them. So we go looking for them to find the workflow whose name and ID match what we're looking for. So if the workflow name that we're currently looking on matches the name of the workflow that we're looking for, then we don't actually continue, obviously don't continue through the rest of the hundreds and hundreds of workflows in the response body. The moment we find the workflow we're looking for, we break out of this loop. Then in lines 33 through 35, we are saying, as long as we didn't get to the end of all the workflows, then we found the workflow. So if our I counter variable is less than the total number of workflows, we found the workflow that we're looking for. On the other hand, lines 36 through 49 are handling the case where we did not find the workflow that you said you wanted us to find. Lines 36 through 48 will simply, let's see, what did I do here? We'll simply return the workflow ID of the first workflow. So when you run this REST request, as long as it finds the workflow that we're looking for, it will return the workflow ID of that workflow. If it does not find the workflow with the matching name, it just to have something in the workflow underscore ID Postman variable, it'll just stick in the ID of the first workflow. Admittedly, lines 36 through 48 are probably, 36 through 46 are probably not what you do in the real world. In the real world, if you didn't find the workflow that you're looking for, you would presumably send some sort of error message and perhaps set the workflow underscore ID Postman variable to some dummy value. Anyways, in lines 47 and 49, we report the name of the workflow that we found, which could be the one that we're looking for, or it could just be the first one. We return print the workflow ID. And then finally, crucially in line number 51, we are taking the workflow ID that we found and sticking it into the Postman variable called workflow underscore ID so that we can go run other requests such as run workflow, which coincidentally is what we're going to look at in the next video. Join me in the next video as we continue to explore the Orchestrator REST API.